Asterix the Gaul. Once upon a time, over 2,000 years ago, the Romans had conquered most of the known world. Of course, not as much of the world was known then as it is now. For instance, people in Europe hadn't discovered Australia or America yet. As a matter of fact, Asterix the Gaul, the hero of the story you're about to hear, did once go to America, but by mistake, so it doesn't count. However, whenever the Romans heard about a new bit of the world, they set out to conquer it. You might perhaps say they were rather greedy, but they liked conquering things, and they nearly always succeeded in what they set out to do. So the Romans were definitely the top people of their time. They were particularly good at conquering under their famous military leader, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was ruling Rome in the year 50 BC, when this story begins. By that time, the Roman army had reached Gaul, the country we now know as France. The Gauls put up a brave fight against the invaders, led by gallant chieftains such as the great Vercingetorix. There were skirmishes all over the hills and forests and countryside of Gaul. But in the end, the Gauls were overcome by the sheer weight of the Roman numbers. And if you've ever written out Roman numbers, you'll know how much more space they take up than the ordinary sort. What was more, the Romans had all the latest weapons and modern technology. For instance, they had great catapults on wheels for hurling huge missiles at the enemy. Long-range missiles travelling 100 yards or so. How could the poor Gauls hope to compete? At last Vercingetorix was besieged in a place called Alesia. There was a final great battle, and the Romans won. Chief Vercingetorix himself was forced to throw his arms at Caesar's feet. He had quite a lot of arms, besides his own too, which of course he couldn't throw. He had a sword, a shield, several helmets, a battle-axe, and a nice assortment of spears. He was also a pretty good shot, so when he was told to throw this collection of ironmongery at Caesar's feet, he hit the target with ease. "Ouch!" yelled the unfortunate Caesar. He was only wearing Roman sandals on his feet at the time. The Gaulish arms hurt, and he had Vercingetorix packed off to Rome in chains. So now peace reigned all over Gaul, disturbed only by occasional attacks from fierce German tribesmen sneaking over the border to see what pickings they could find on the other side. Usually all they found was a bunch of tough Roman soldiers pointing some very sharp spears in their direction, whereupon the German tribesmen would slink off, muttering, "Good, we go," and "So, but we come back." The more sensible of them never did, though. So all Gaul was occupied. All Gaul? No, that's not quite accurate. One little village, up on the coast of Armorica, which is now called Brittany, was still holding out against the Romans, and had refused to surrender to Julius Caesar. In his efforts to defeat that last little village, Caesar had surrounded it with fortified Roman camps. There were 4 of them, called Aquarium, Compendium, Laudanum, and Titorum, and they were all fully garrisoned with Roman soldiers armed to the teeth. Not that garrison duty outside that Gaulish village was a very popular assignment in the ranks of the Roman army. Rumours had filtered back to Rome about the Gaulish villagers. They were a tough lot who liked nothing better than a fight. Thumping a new supply of Romans just arrived to reinforce the garrisons of the fortified camps was their idea of a really good day out, and when they had well and truly thumped the opposition, they'd go home to celebrate with a nice banquet of plenty of roast wild boar, their favourite food. They always won these fights, partly because of their native courage, but also because they had a secret weapon. It was a magic potion, brewed by the venerable village Druid Getafix. Getafix had recipes for quite a number of magic potions, but this one was a real winner, literally. If you drank it, it gave you superhuman strength. Only for a limited period of time, but usually that was quite long enough for one to demolish a heap of Roman soldiers. And when the effects had worn off, Getafix could always make another brew of potion. All the Gauls of the village were good fighters, but the cleverest of them all was Asterix, a shrewd, cunning little warrior, who was always picked to go on the most dangerous missions. He wasn't much to look at. He was rather short and not very stout, with a pair of drooping yellow moustaches. But he had plenty of brains, Brains and the magic potion combined made Asterix just about unbeatable. His great friend Obelix was completely different. Obelix was tall, with red hair and whiskers, and he was definitely stout. Indeed, some people might have called him fat, but not in his hearing. Obelix was very sensitive about his size. He might have looked a little slimmer if he hadn't worn trousers with wide blue and white stripes, but he was sure they suited him. By trade, he was a menhir maker and delivery man. Menhirs were huge standing stones, and you can still see some in Brittany today. There was a lot of demand for them in the Gaulish village, so Obelix was kept busy. However, he was always ready to drop everything to go on an adventure with his friend Asterix, even if what he dropped was an immense menhir. All he asked was plenty of roast wild boar to keep him going, and plenty of Romans to fight. His great sorrow in life was that he never got any magic potion. He had fallen into the Druid's cauldron as a baby when Getafix was brewing the potion, and the amount he had swallowed had a permanent effect on him, so that his superhuman strength never, ever wore off. There was no point in feeding him any more of the stuff. Obelix got very cross about this, because the potion smelt delicious. Besides Asterix, he had another very good friend, his little dog Dogmatix, who went with them on many adventures. But at the time of this particular story, the two of them hadn't yet met. Although Asterix and Getafix were the brightest of the villagers, the official leader was Chief Vital Statistics. Brave, majestic, and hot-tempered, he was respected by his tribe and feared by his enemies. Vital Statistics himself had only one fear. Like the rest of the Gauls 2,000 years ago, he was afraid the sky might fall on his head tomorrow. After all, there was no obvious reason why it shouldn't. You can't see anything actually propping it up. However, the Gauls were a philosophical lot, and knew you could only live one day at a time. If the sky might fall on their heads tomorrow, well, as Vital Statistics pointed out, tomorrow never comes. It was an ancient Gaulish custom for chieftains to be carried about on a shield, to show how dignified they were, and so Vital Statistics had 2 shield-bearers to take him round his village. Dignified it may have been, but it was also bad for the figure, since he never got any exercise, and his Vital Statistics got larger and larger. Other prominent people in the Gaulish village were the oldest inhabitant, Astrix, and his pretty wife. Astrix had to use a crutch, but he was as fond of fighting Romans as anyone. Then there were the fishmonger, Unhygienix, and his wife, Bacteria, and the village blacksmith, fully automatics, a huge, hefty fellow, who always kept a wary eye open for the village bard, Cacophonix. That was in case the bard started singing and playing his lyre. Bards were supposed to sing and play the lyre, of course. Every village had its own bard in those days to provide entertainment. The trouble was that bards are also supposed to be able to sing and play the lyre in tune, and that was beyond Cacophonix. So long as he didn't open his mouth to sing or start strumming his lyre, everyone liked him. If he tried doing his bard's job, however, Fully Automatics was always ready to render a public service by slamming him into the ground. At the time when this story begins, the situation had reached stalemate. There were the Gauls sitting tight in their little village, coming out now and then to bash a few Romans. There were the Roman garrisons, sitting tight in their fortified camps, coming out of them as seldom as possible, and trying not to get bashed by the Gauls. And there was Julius Caesar, sitting in Rome on a grand throne in a great hall full of marble columns, staring at a map of Gaul which showed his problem all too clearly, wondering on earth what to do about it, and muttering crossly to himself. As he was Roman, Caesar muttered crossly to himself in Latin. Quid, he muttered. Quid meant what? It covered quite a number of the questions Caesar was asking himself. What was the matter with his previously invincible legionaries? What kept them from flattening one tiny little village? And the most vital question of all, because at this point Caesar didn't know yet about the Druid and his magic potion, was what gave those Gauls their superhuman strength? They must surely have some secret weapon. But what could it be? Meanwhile, in the Gaulish village, Astrix was just off hunting as usual. On his way out he met Obelix, carrying a huge menhir on his back, and going to deliver it to a customer. "Will you be back soon, Asterix?" he asked. "I'll be back for dinner," Asterix promised. In fact, I'll be back with dinner. Care to dine with me later? You bet, said Obelix, who knew his friend could be trusted to bring something good to eat back. And Asterix strode out of the village, moustache bristling, the little wings on his helmet alert, ready for anything. Sure enough, though he hadn't actually been expecting them, he was perfectly ready for the patrol of 4 Roman soldiers who were in hiding behind a tree in the forest, hoping to jump out and capture a Gaulish villager. These 4 legionaries had come from the camp of Compendium, and had arrived quite recently to reinforce its garrison. They had high hopes of winning glory in the struggle against the Gauls, and when they saw the small figure of Asterix approaching, they thought it might be quite easy after all. This scrawny little fellow wasn't likely to give them much trouble. Here he comes, said the first legionary. We'll get him, said the second legionary. Ipso facto, said the third legionary, remembering his Roman origins and speaking Latin, like Caesar. He meant he agreed with his friends. Sick, said the fourth legionary. This was Latin too, and didn't mean exactly what you might think. It meant he too was agreeing with the others. Or was he? As Asterix got closer, something about the gleam in his eye made the 4 legionaries remember a few of the things they had heard about these indomitable Gauls. They did begin to feel ever so slightly sick with apprehension. They soon felt a lot sicker. Asterix spotted them just before they jumped on him. With 2 quick punches and 2 swift kicks, he knocked the 4 spears out of their hands. Then the legionaries themselves went flying up in the air. Biff, bang, crash, it was all over in a moment. And down came the Romans with squeals of ow and ouch. They landed seeing stars and feeling very groggy, and ended up elegantly draped over the trunk and branches of a couple of trees, which Asterix had knocked half out of the ground in the course of the scuffle. It certainly took their minds off Latin grammar. Accidents, as they say, will happen. We decline, admitted the legionary who had been so sure of getting Asterix. He was now hanging over the branch of a tree. And fall, he added, slipping off it and landing on the ground with a thud. Sure enough, like the Roman Empire itself a bit later, they were declining and falling all over the place. Meanwhile, Asterix just dusted off his hands and went on his way whistling, to look for wild boars. Painfully the patrol dragged itself back to the camp of Compendium. The sentry on duty went to report the Centurion Christmas Bonus, the senior officer in command of the whole garrison. He was a vigorous, white-haired old soldier, dressed in a handsome white tunic and red cloak with gold embroidery, and he was very, very keen to be the man whose legionaries defeated the Gaulish villagers. Just think of the honour and glory that would be heaped on him, Christmas Bonus, back in Rome. Just think how pleased Caesar would be. As a matter of fact, Centurion Christmas Bonus had ambitions that went even farther, but we shall be coming to those later. "Ave Christmas Bonus," said the sentry, saluting smartly. Christmas Bonus was very keen on discipline in his camp. "The patrol's back." "Ave Julius Pompus," said the centurion. "Good. I'll go and inspect them." The gleeful look on his face faded the moment he stepped outside his commanding officer's tent, which was white with gold embroidery like his own uniform, and found himself looking at 4 tottering, bedraggled legionaries with 8 black eyes between them. They could hardly raise their feeble hands halfway in salute. It was as much as they could do to mumble, "Ave Centurion." "What happened, by all the gods?" thundered Christmas Bonus. "We were attacked by superior numbers?" "Superior numbers?" queried the 4th and smallest legionary, turning to his neighbour. "Couldn't quite say," said the 3rd and next largest legionary. "There was one of them," remembered the 2nd legionary, who was next largest in line. "Not a very large one either," agreed the 1st and biggest legionary. Christmas Bonus was astonished. He was also furious. "By Jupiter," he muttered, invoking the chief god of the Romans, as he paced angrily up and down his tent. "Just as Caesar says, there must be some secret behind the superhuman strength of these Gauls. There simply must. But what is it? I must find out. I must think up a clever plan." Meanwhile, Asterix himself was on his way back through the village gates, easily carrying a huge wild boar bigger than himself slung over his shoulder. He'd almost forgotten the whole episode with the Romans. A few Roman legionaries armed to the teeth were all in a day's work to him. Just inside the village, he met Obelix. Obelix recognized his friend by the fact he couldn't see any of him above the waist, on account of the size of the boar. "Oh," "So you're back, Asterix," he said. "Anything interesting happen?" "No," said Asterix, and then remembered. "Oh, yes, I knocked out 4 Romans." "Oh, good," said Obelix. "And then I found this nice big boar," said Asterix. "You're coming to help me eat it, aren't you? Just give me time to get it cooked." "Fine," said Obelix, strolling on down the village street, with yet another Menhir twice his own height on his back. "I've just got a few more Menhirs to deliver." By the time he had delivered them, and was making his way to Asterix's house, a comfortable log cabin with a dry stone front wall and pot of flowers in the window, delicious smells were drifting out of it. Smells of Obelix's very favourite food, roast boar. "Come in, Obelix," called Asterix. "It's done to a turn." "Yum, yum," said Obelix, and he hurried in, with his hands still held out behind his back in the menhir-carrying position. It got to be a habit with him. The friends sat beside a cheerful fire in Asterix's house, and thoroughly enjoyed their dinner. But when Obelix had heard all about Asterix's little adventure with the 4 Roman legionaries, he looked rather thoughtful. "The Romans won't like this," he pointed out. "They'll launch a new offensive." "Ha!" snorted Asterix. "We can be as offensive as the Romans any day of the week. Anyway, as long as our Druid Getafix keeps brewing his magic potion, they can't do a thing. Luckily, I'd taken a drop or 2 just before I went into the forest, to make me strong enough to carry a boar home. It came in very handy." "Lucky old you," said Obelix enviously. "Why won't the Druid ever give me any magic potion? Just a little drop, just once in a while. I mean, it couldn't actually hurt, could it?" This sort of thing was all too familiar for anyone who knew Obelix. "Tell you what," said Asterix, hastily cutting short his friend's old grievance. "I feel the effects of my last dose of the potion wearing off. If you think the Romans are going to get tough with us, I'd better take some more. Let's go and see Getafix." And he tossed the last boar bone over his shoulder as he rose to his feet. It landed on the huge dish now piled high with the rest of the bones, every last one of them gnawed clean. The Druid wasn't at home, but Asterix had a good idea where to find him. Out in the forest, up a big oak tree, cutting mistletoe with his special golden sickle. Mistletoe was an important ingredient in the various potions the Gauls drank, but it had to be cut by a Druid, and he had to use a golden sickle. Asterix and Obelix couldn't see Getafix anywhere around at first, but after a while they heard a chopping sound, coming from the branches of a vast oak tree growing beside a dolmen. Dolmens, like menhirs, were standing stones of a kind very popular with the Gauls, and they must have been even more popular with the ancient Britons of the time, since Stonehenge consists mostly of dolmens. A dolmen consists of 2 upright stones with a flat one laid over them. "Getafix must be up that tree," Asterix deduced, and cupping his hand to his mouth, he bawled at the top of his voice, "Getafix! Oh, Druid!" "Ouch!" came a screech from the branches. Next moment, Getafix came slithering down, accompanied by a large sprig of mistletoe, and landed on the flat stone of the dolmen. He was a fine figure of a Druid, and looked very impressive with his long white beard and moustache, wearing his flowing white robe, a red cloak, and a blue belt. The famous golden sickle was tucked into the belt. Just now he was also a cross figure of a Druid. He stood on the dolmen, sucking his finger. "You made me jump," he told Asterix. "Now I've gone and cut myself with my sickle." "Oh, sorry," said Asterix. "I didn't mean to startle you, Druid. The thing is, I think the time has come for me to have another dose of the potion. The last lot's just wearing off, and there are reasons why we may all need to be at peak strength." "Oh, all right," said the Druid, jumping off the dolmen quite nippily for an old gentleman of his age. "Come along home with me." On the way back from the forest, Asterix told Getafix about his meeting with the Roman patrol. The Druid agreed that it wouldn't be at all surprising if Centurion Christmas Bonus and his men launched an attack in the near future, and he quickened his pace until the 3 of them were back at his house. Getafix's house was a fascinating place. It was full of the tools of a Druid's trade. Bottles and jars of mysterious liquids, herbs, pots and pans, sickles, drinking horns, and strange instruments which only another Druid could have identified. And in the middle of the house stood the Druid's huge cauldron. There was a fire burning underneath it, and the contents were simmering quietly away. If possible, it smelt even more delicious than the roast boar Asterix and Obelix had just been eating. "Here," said Getafix solemnly, "is the potion that makes the drinker invincible. It increases his strength tenfold, although, as you know, Astrix, only for a limited period of time." Astrix knew. There was something else he didn't know, and would have liked to know. He didn't think Getafix would tell him, but it was worth a try. "What's the recipe, O Druid?" he asked. "Ah," said Getafix, smiling indulgently as he stood over the cauldron, stirring the contents with a vast ladle. "The origin of this recipe is lost in the mists of time. It is handed down from Druid to Druid by word of mouth." Asterix realized the Druid was not going to give away any trade secrets. "All I can reveal," continued Getafix, reaching for another ingredient, "is that there's mistletoe and lobster in it." He dropped the lobster in with a loud splosh. "The lobster is optional," he added, "but it improves the flavour." And he ladled a helping of potion into the bowl Asterix was holding out. "Can I have some?" asked the ever-hopeful Obelix. He sounded as pathetic as he possibly could. Getafix was not taken in. "No, Obelix, you can't, and well you know it," he said. "In fact, we all know perfectly well that you fell into this cauldron when you were a baby, and the potion had a permanent effect on you. It would be dangerous for you to drink any more." "Wouldn't," muttered Obelix rebelliously. Asterix drained his bowl full of potion. A sort of glow appeared to materialize round him. He felt wonderfully strong. "Thanks, O Druid," he said happily, chucking the bowl over his shoulder, just the way he had chucked the boar bone, and he put out his hand to shake Getafix's. "It's not fair, by Bellinos," said Obelix, swearing by one of the gods of the Gauls. "Ouch!" yelled Getafix, leaping up and down in agony at Asterix's cordial shake of the hand. "Ow! Ouch! Ow! Put me down, will you?" Apologetically, Asterix put him down. Getafix tenderly massaged his poor squashed hand. "I've told you before," he said crossly, "not to shake hands with me when you've just had your potion. You're too strong by half." "He's right," said Asterix remorsefully, as the two friends walked away from the Druid's house. "I don't know my own strength." "It's still not fair about the potion," said Obelix, brooding on the injustice of it all. The Gauls had been right to take precautions. Centurion Christmas Bonus was infuriated by this latest humiliation to his men. He had summoned the entire garrison of Compendium, and stood on a mound covered by a tiger skin to make a speech to them. He looked the very image of a noble Roman officer. His second-in-command, Marcus Ginnantonicus, a tall, dark man with a lantern jaw and a mournful expression on his face, stood beside him, arms folded. Christmas Bonus was in a ferocious temper as he addressed his legionaries. "We've been laying siege to these Gauls for years," he announced. "And what are the results? Absolutely nil. This morning's provocation is going too far. 1 against 4? I mean, that's no joke." "Not half it isn't," muttered one of the battered legionaries who had been a member of the ill-fated patrol. "They're making us look ridiculous," continued Christmas Bonus. The men nodded gloomily. If there was one thing a Roman hated, from Julius Caesar down to the humblest legionary, it was being made to look ridiculous. Centurion Christmas Bonus folded his brawny arms and looked round. "Well," he said, "any ideas?" Marcus Ginnantonicus, whose brain didn't work all that fast, had just come to the same conclusion already reached by Christmas Bonus himself, and by Julius Caesar in Rome. "There's some mystery behind the superhuman strength of those Gauls," he said brightly. "I mean to say, don't know if you've noticed, sir, but it's, well, kind of superhuman. They've got a secret. We must learn their secret." Those were Christmas Bonus's own sentiments exactly. He unfolded his arms, placed his hands on his hips, and put his head back. He looked nobler than ever, with all the gold embroidery on his tunic glinting. "You're right, Marcus Ginnantonicus, my trusty number 2, he said. "We must learn their secret, and fast. Caesar has indicated his displeasure, all the way from Rome. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you what Caesar's displeasure could mean, he added. All the same, he told them. A visit to the Circus Maximus, that's what. Oh, goody-goody gumdrops, said a little legionary called Caligula-Minus, whose mother would never let him go to the Circus Maximus in Rome when he was a little boy. He means a visit to the circus as a performer, nitwit, hissed another legionary. In the arena, with the savage wild beasts, getting torn limb from limb. See? Caligula-Minus nodded sadly. He'd thought that if he joined the army when he grew up, he could get away from his mother and all the things she'd never let him do, and life would be a lot more fun. So far it looks as if he'd miscalculated. Right, men, continued Christmas Bonus. We must find out just how the Gauls get this amazing strength. To do that, we need a spy in the Gaulish village. I want a volunteer. And he and Marcus Ginantonicus looked at the assembled garrison of Compendium as if they expected everyone to volunteer at once. The assembled garrison of Compendium did not look back at them. Anything but. They looked at the ground, at the sky, at the handsome tents which were their living quarters, even at each other. Meeting the commanding officer's eyes might have been taken as expressing a wish to volunteer, and it had just struck every single member of the garrison that he would much rather end up in the Circus Maximus with the lions than in the Gaulish village spying on the Gauls. The two officers stared incredulously at their gallant troops. Very well, said Christmas Bonus grimly. Since there are so many volunteers, and you can't all have this wonderful once-in-a-lifetime privilege, we'll just have to play musical chairs to pick the spy. This ancient Roman game was played with one less chair than there were legionaries. The chairs were put in the middle of a grassy space. A trumpeter played a rousing tune on the long Roman army trumpet, and the other legionaries all raced round and round the chairs in a circle. The moment the music stopped, all the players had to sit down. Moving like greased lightning, they lunged for the chairs, and everyone managed to sit down except little Caligula-Minus, who was very weedy and really didn't stand a chance against his big, muscular fellow legionaries. Ho, ho, ho! Chortled the other legionaries, greatly relieved. They all pointed mockingly at Caligula-Minus. Ho, ho, ho! They chuckled. Caligula-Minus is out! Caligula-Minus is out! Ho, ho! What a joke! Poor Caligula-Minus didn't think it a joke at all. He stood there fuming silently, thinking all the rude words his mother wouldn't let him use when he was a little boy. The habit of a lifetime was too strong to break, and he still couldn't actually say them. However, when Christmas Bonus jumped down off his tiger skin in a businesslike way, he did pluck up the courage to fold his arms and face his commanding officer. I'm not going to spy on the Gauls, he said defiantly. Oh, come along now, Caligula-Minus, said Christmas Bonus in tones of sweet reason. Caesar will be eternally grateful to you if you go. I'm not going to spy on the Gauls, repeated Caligula-Minus. He even turned his back on Christmas Bonus. Christmas Bonus lost his temper. And I'll roast you alive if you don't go, he bellowed at the top of his voice. Caligula-Minus was practically blasted out of his army sandals. He jumped a good foot into the air. Oh, all right, he said shakily when he came down again. I'll go and spy on the Gauls. Good, said Christmas Bonus, marching off. The rest of you, get him up to look like a Gaul. Back in the Gaulish village, another speech was being made, this time by Chief Vital Statistics, addressing the villagers from the top of his shield. Those Romans have been keeping quiet too long, said Vital Statistics at the end of his speech. It can't last. Be on your guard, and never forget to take your magic potion. Long live our Chief Vital Statistics, shouted the villagers, applauding. Just then Obelix came down the village street. Hey, Chief, he called. Vital Statistics was just stepping down from his shield. What is it, Obelix? He asked. Obelix was still nursing his grievance. They won't let me have any magic potion, he complained. It's not fair. I feel a little weak. As he was carrying two vast menhirs instead of just the one this time, a menhir in each hand, that didn't seem a very likely story. But before Vital Statistics could reply to Obelix's appeal, everyone's attention was distracted by a sudden dire emergency. Help! Cried Asterix. Here comes the bard, Cacophonix! Sure enough, Cacophonix, after listening to the chief's speech, had gone into his house to find a musical instrument. He came out with bagpipes instead of his usual lyre, and marched up to the assembled villagers. "I will now give you a song to inspire the warriors with courage," he announced. The villagers dispersed like lightning. Cacophonix on the lyre was bad enough. The prospect of Cacophonix on the bagpipes was more than any Gaulish warrior, however tough, felt he should be asked to stand. "Sorry, can't stop," said Astrix, scurrying away very fast. "I've got no end of menhirs to deliver," said Obelix, striding off just as fast in another direction with his double load of menhirs. "Isn't it really the time?" asked Vital Statistics, glancing up at the position of the sun. "It made the sky fall on my head, but it's getting late," he exclaimed, racing off in yet a third direction as fast as his bulk would let him. The bard was left alone in the middle of the village. "Barbarians," said Cacophonix crossly. "They just don't appreciate my art." At Compendium, the other legionaries had been having a lot of fun dressing Caligula- up as a Gaul. Marcus Ginnantonicus entered his commander's tent, where Crispus Bonus was reclining on a couch, eating a bunch of grapes. The centurion liked his home comforts when away from Rome. "Caligula- is ready, centurion," said Ginnantonicus. "We've got him up in a really good disguise." "Let's have a look," said Crispus Bonus. He stuck his head out through the tent opening. For a moment he was puzzled by the sight that met his eyes. Most of the garrison were falling about laughing. Then he saw what they were laughing at. There stood weedy little Caligula- in a red Gaulish tunic, which came down almost to his ankles, big blue Gaulish shoes, and a small Gaulish horned helmet perched on top of his head. On his head itself he wore a ginger wig with Gaulish pigtails attached, and he had a false ginger moustache. He looked furious and very silly. Crispus Bonus himself started laughing. He laughed so much he could hardly speak. "Ha, ha, ha, ha!" he gasped. "Right! Put him in chains! Ha! Ho, ho, ho!" Next moment, a huge legionary had grabbed the startled Caligula- and wrapped a stout chain round him several times. "What's up?" squealed Caligula-. Centurion Crispus Bonus told him. "You're going for a little walk near the Gaulish village," he said. "When the Gauls see you, they'll come out and rescue you. Then you'll be able to infiltrate the village and learn their secret. That's my cunning plan." He sounded quite jovial. "Well, what do you think?" "I don't," said Caligula- blankly. "I didn't understand a word of it." Crispus Bonus's mood instantly changed. "Oh, for Jupiter's sake, take him away!" he yelled. The unfortunate Caligula- was dragged away on the end of his chain, shrieking, "Ouch! Careful! I'm a Roman, remember? I'm only pretending to be a Gaul." "We want this to look real, don't we?" said the legionary, dragging him along. "Otherwise the Gauls won't be taken in." It looked real, all right, and it felt real to Caligula- as three large legionaries, with Marcus Ginnantonicus in charge of the party, marched him along in his chains for mile after weary mile, through the countryside outside the fortified camp. "Is this walk going on much longer?" he panted. "Shut up, Caligula-, snapped Marcus Ginnantonicus. "We're not far from the Gaulish village now." Sure enough, not so very far away, Asterix and Obelix were out for a walk. Asterix was feeling perky after his recent dose of potion. "I wonder if we'll come across any more Romans," he said. "I could just do with a nice fight." "I don't think you can count on one," said Obelix sadly. He wished he hadn't been too busy delivering menhirs to go out hunting boar with his friend earlier. "After you bashed that Roman patrol, I should think they'll be feeling rather cautious." But he was to be proved wrong. Asterix interrupted him, whispering, "Wait a minute." "What for?" asked Obelix. "Shush," hissed Asterix. He put out one hand to stop Obelix in his tracks, and cupped the other to his ear. "But," said Obelix, "I can hear footsteps," Asterix explained in a whisper, "and chains clanking, and someone wailing. Quick, let's hide up this tree. I've an idea we may soon get a chance to loosen up our muscles." And next moment the two Gauls were up the tree and lying in wait for the approaching Romans. Caligula- was no happier than before. He was complaining out loud to himself and anyone else who would listen. He was homesick. He was even missing his mother and her home cooking, which wasn't pasta as you might think, since pasta was not imported into Italy from China by the famous traveller Marco Polo until centuries later. "By all the gods, I should have stayed at home," Caligula-Minus was grumbling. "I never ought to have joined Caesar's legions in search of fame and fortune. My skin's not worth a sestertius, and I'll never eat tapioca like Mater made it again." A sestertius was a small and not very valuable Roman coin. "Will you shut up, Caligula-Minus?" said the exasperated Marcus Ginnantonicus. "After all, when the hordes of Gauls pour out to attack us, you're the only one they'll spare, remember?" Sure enough, the hordes of Gauls, all 2 of them, had taken in the situation at a glance from their vantage point up in the tree. Or rather, they'd taken in what seemed to be the situation. "Romans, with a Gaul as prisoner," exclaimed Obelix. "We'll rescue him," said Asterix. They waited until the party of legionaries commanded by Marcus Ginnantonicus, dragging along Caligula-Minus, was passing just beneath their tree. "Right," said Marcus Ginnantonicus to his men. "Everyone got the idea? If they attack, we only put up a token resistance." "Here we come, by Tutatis!" yelled Asterix, swearing by the chief god of the Gauls as he jumped athletically down out of the tree. "Here they come, by Jupiter!" cried Marcus Ginnantonicus, drawing his sword. Asterix had knocked it out of his hand in an instant, and he staggered backwards. The sheer surprise of seeing something as large as Obelix jump feet first out of a tree had knocked the other 2 legionaries back against a nearby rock, and next moment Obelix had picked them up, one in each hand, and was bashing their helmets methodically together. Even if the Romans had wanted to put up more than a token resistance, they wouldn't have stood a chance. "You're a bit soft today, don't you think, Obelix?" Asterix asked his friend, sending Marcus Ginnantonicus's helmet flying and turning to deal with the huge legionary who'd been holding the end of Caligula-Minus's chain. "Yeah, they're off form," agreed Obelix. "They should take better care of themselves. Eat a well-balanced diet. Go jogging, keep fit. Disappointing, that's what I call it." "That seems to be the lot," said Asterix, looking around. "And a pretty substandard lot, too," said Obelix, looking down at the 2 limp legionaries whose collars he was holding. "I say, couldn't we bring 'em round and start again?" "No, come on, it's getting late, and we've rescued this Gaul now," said Asterix, marching off again. "That was the point of the exercise after all." Regretfully, Obelix tucked Caligula-Minus under one arm and followed his friend. Marcus Ginnantonicus just managed to raise his head from the ground and gasp, "Mission accomplished," before dropping back again with his head swimming. A little farther down the road the Gauls stopped. "Now we'll strike off your chains," Asterix told Caligula-Minus. "Strike off my chains?" said Caligula-Minus in surprise. "But you'll need tools, a hammer, and so on." He looked around. There were certainly no tools in sight. "No, we won't," said Obelix, and he and Asterix just tore apart the heavy metal chains as if they were only made of paper. Caligula-Minus was so surprised that his imitation ginger pigtails stood upright in the air. "There," said Asterix, once the chains were off. "Well, Gaul, what's your name?" Caligula-Minix, said Caligula-Minus hastily, making his name sound Gaulish instead of Roman. "I'm from Lutetia, the capital city. I was just going to Armorica on holiday when the Romans captured me." "How odd," said Asterix. "Why on earth would they want to do a thing like that? Everywhere, except in our little village, the Romans and the Gauls are at peace." "Ah, yes," said Caligula-Minus, beginning to feel quite pleased with his performance. "But you see, I looked so clever and cunning that in their eyes I was a spy." "Their eyes can't be all that bright, then," chuckled Obelix, not very politely. But even he could see that Caligula-Minus was not one of the world's great brains. While the 2 friends took their new acquaintance back to their village, Marcus Ginnantonicus and his heroic detachment returned to the camp of Compendium. "The Gauls came and saw and conquered Caligula-Minus," Marcus Ginnantonicus reported back to the centurion, who rubbed his hands with glee. "A great victory for us," said Christmas Bonus. "Oh, won't Caesar be pleased?" "Let's just hope Caligula-Minus gets back in one piece to tell us what he finds out in the village," said Marcus Gigantonicus. After his own recent experience, he didn't feel too sure of it. "He'd better," said Christmas Bonus grimly, "because if not, I'll have something to say to his Roman remains." "Alea jacta est," commented Marcus Gigantonicus, quoting a famous remark of Julius Caesar's when he crossed the river Rubicon. "Pardon?" said one of his luckless companions from the escort party, who had obviously been thumped so hard he'd forgotten his own language. "The die is cast," Marcus Gigantonicus kindly translated for him. And so it was. By now, Caligula-Minus was near his journey's end. "This is our village, Caligula-Minix," said Asterix. "You'll be safe here. It's full of Gauls." "That's a great comfort, I'm sure," said Caligula-Minus a bit faintly. He was feeling increasingly doubtful about the whole operation, after the stories the two Gauls had told him on the way. Two Gauls near the gateway in the village fence were the first to spot the returning heroes. "Asterix and Obelix are back," cried one of them. "And they've got something with them," said his friend, peering at the approaching threesome. "Something very peculiar, by Bellanos," he muttered a little later, inspecting the newcomer. The whole village had gathered round to greet the disguised Caligula-Minus and hear his story. "And now come and meet our chief, Vital Statistics," Astrix told a disguised Roman. As they set off down the village street, Caligula-Minus was surprised and not a little alarmed to see a tiny little girl run past with a look of great determination on her face. She was pulling a toy cart on a string with one hand, and in the other hand she held a sharp, pointed dagger. But even the toddlers are all armed," gasped Caligula-Minus, feeling unnerved. "Yes, we have to be ready to fight the Romans at the drop of a helmet," Asterix explained. Caligula-Minus's own helmet had fallen off in his alarm. He mopped his brow before replacing it. "A very wise precaution," he agreed, trying not to let his voice shake. It was easy to tell which was the chief's house. It was the grandest in the village, and had the skull of a great horned ox fastened outside. "Our chief, Vital Statistics, is in there with Getafix the Druid," Asterix told Caligula-Minus. "I've heard about you." Caligula-Minus fervently hoped they hadn't heard all about him. But Vital Statistics was very friendly. "Welcome, brother, and make yourself at home," he said jovially. Caligula-Minus only just stopped himself saying Ave in time. How do you do?" he said. Getafix was there as well, just as Astrix had said, and so was someone else about whom Astrix had not warned his new friend yet. Cacophonix had found his lyre. "I will now sing you a song of welcome," he announced. "Cacophonix," said Getafix gently, "just go and look up an oak tree and see if I'm there, will you? Any oak tree will do, just so long as it's well out in the forest." "By all means," said Cacophonix, a helpful soul. He was halfway to the forest before it struck him that there was anything odd about the Druid's request. Caligula-Minus began to feel better again after telling his story to Vital Statistics and Getafix, who were very sympathetic about the bad time he claimed to have had at the hands of the Romans. As they left the chief's house, Astrix, who had a few errands to run, suggested that his guest might like to take a stroll round the village by himself until dinner-time. "But don't go far from the village itself," he warned. "There are Romans about." Yes," said Caligula-Minus, going off in the opposite direction. He had no intention of leaving the village just yet, anyway. This was his big chance to have a good snoop round on his own, and try to get hold of the sort of information Christmas Bonus and Caesar wanted. A peaceful, rustic scene met his eyes as he strolled down the main street. The houses had steep roofs with smoke curling up from their chimneys. There were pigs rooting in the ground, and chickens pecking for seeds and grubs. All was quiet, except when a Gaulish lady poured a basin of washing-up water out of her window, right on top of someone who happened to be sitting there, and except for the ringing sound of metalworking that came from the doorway of the smithy. A notice up over the door proclaimed, "Fully automatics, weapons for all the family." "I wonder what sort of tools they use for working metal here," said Caligula-Minus to himself, and he peered in through the doorway. There stood the mighty figure of the village blacksmith, with a sword blade laid on his anvil, and he was working away at it with his hands. "His bare hands, by Jupiter!" gasped Caligula-Minus, hardly able to believe his eyes. He saw more strange sights as he walked on. "How's that Mania going?" a villager called to Obelix. "Coming along nicely," replied Obelix, holding the Mania in question up in the air with a single hand as he walked along without a care in the world. Even more startling was the sight of Asterix hurrying past, pulling a cart laden with huge, heavy tree trunks, all by himself. Caligula-Minus jumped several feet in the air, he was so surprised. "No doubt about it. They certainly are very strong," he concluded. "Obviously Christmas bonus was right. They must have some secret. I must think of some cunning way to find it out." Over dinner in Asterix's house, as he and Obelix and Asterix each sat in front of a huge roast boar, Caligula-Minus put his cunning plan into action. "Is there some secret behind your superhuman strength?" he asked. "Yes," said Asterix, through a large mouthful of boar. "But we can't reveal it." "Eat up your boar. It's getting cold," Obelix reminded Caligula-Minus. He hated to think of anyone not enjoying his dinner. "Why can't you reveal your secret?" Caligula-Minus persisted. "Because it's a secret," Asterix pointed out. Caligula-Minus pretended to take offence. "That's not fair," he said. "What are things coming to if one Gaul can't trust another?" And he turned his back on his boar, as if he was too unhappy and miserable to have any appetite for it. "If I was as strong as you lot," he said, sniffing, "I could get through the Roman lines and go home to Lutetia. My poor family," he continued, shedding tears. "They'll be worried to death." The kind-hearted Asterix was very upset himself to see his guest in distress. "Oh dear, what do we do now?" he whispered to Obelix. "We could always eat his wild boar," suggested Obelix helpfully. Asterix made up his mind. "Come along, Caligula-Minix," he said briskly. "We're off to see the Druid." And seizing Caligula-Minus's hand, he led him out of the house and out of the village, with Obelix puffing along behind them. What upset Obelix was to think of a perfectly good wild boar left behind them, getting cold. "Getafix will be up an oak tree," Asterix explained. "It's the 6th day of the new moon, and mistletoe cut then is a powerful antidote to poison." Sure enough, he soon spotted a ladder leaning against a tree trunk. "Hi, Druid!" he bellowed. "Ouch!" yelled a voice overhead, and once again the Druid came swinging down from the branches. "Asterix, I've told you again and again not to make me jump when I'm using my sickle," Getafix said crossly. "Well, what do you want?" he added, climbing down his ladder. "It's not for me," said Asterix. "I don't want anything myself, thanks. It's my friend Caligula-Minix here. You met him just now. He'd like to know the secret of our superhuman strength." The Druid was outraged at the mere idea of giving away trade secrets. "Nothing doing," he said shortly, and he began climbing straight back up the tree again. None of the others had expected such a flat refusal. Of course, although Asterix and Obelix didn't know it, Getafix was quite right. Instinct told him not to give anything away to a stranger. But at this point, Caligula-Minus, realizing he had the sympathy of his two Gaulish friends, really entered into the spirit of his part, and started piling on the pathos. "Oh, Druid," he said pitifully, speaking to Getafix's back as it disappeared up the ladder. "You see, I have to get home to my poor family somehow. I need to go back to work, to earn an honest sestertius to feed them." "What is your work, come to think of it?" asked Asterix. Caligula-Minus had not thought of a story in advance, but he hastily made one up. "Oh, well, I'm a guide. I show barbarians around the nightlife of Lutetia, that sort of thing. And my wife and family depend on me for their daily bread." "Boo-hoo!" wailed Caligula-Minus. Asterix thought it was enough to melt a heart of stone. "Well, what about it, Druid?" he shouted up the tree. No, and for a third time, no," said the Druid testily. It was really irritating for Caligula-Minus to be so near knowing the secret of the Gaul's superhuman strength, and yet so far. He changed his tune and tried sarcasm. "Oh, fine. That's just fine. I quite understand. I'll have to try going home all the same. he added, pacing up and down with his shoulders slumped and his hands clasped behind his back. He was a picture of despondency. "And if the Romans catch me and take me to Rome, and feed me to the lions in a circus, I shall say, in between each mouthful the lions take, it's all Getafix the Druid's fault. It's all Getafix the Druid's fault." Getafix paused at the top of his ladder. Asterix and Obelix, deeply moved by their new friend's plight, folded their arms and turned to glare at the Druid. How could he be so hard-hearted to a fellow Gaul in need? "Oh, all right," said Getafix wearily, climbing down the ladder again. "I don't like it, though, not one little bit. Come back, Caligula-Minix," he called after Caligula-Minus. The disguised Roman turned, with a gleam in his eye, which luckily for him was half hidden by all his false ginger hair and whiskers. There," said Getafix, patting the little man on the shoulder. "Don't fret. We'll share what we have with you, Caligula-Minix. I'll show you my secret. I'll even let you taste it." "It's a secret you can eat, is it?" asked Caligula-Minus eagerly. "Well, drink is more like it," said Getafix. And on the way back to the village, he explained about the potion. "It's about time I made a big new brew for the whole village anyway," he finished. "Stocks are running a bit low. I'll make a new brew and we can have a party." A new brew was good news all round. So was a party. The Gauls loved parties. Asterix raced ahead of the others into the village, shouting, "Come on, all of you! Our Druid Getafix is going to make the magic potion, and then we'll have a party!" The villagers all gathered eagerly as Getafix set up a cauldron in the open air, over a fire lit in a stone-lined hearth. The Druids sprinkled in all kinds of strange-looking ingredients. Caligula-Minus would have liked to ask what each of them was, but he sensed that this would be going too far. The Druid was a clever man, might well smell a rat. As it was, everyone could smell the delicious aroma of the potion. As it simmered away, all the villagers lined up waiting for it to be ready. Getafix turned to the disguised Roman. "One portion of this potion," he said reassuringly, "will give you all the strength you need to get home to Lutetia." He sprinkled in a little more of some mysterious seasoning. Then he tasted the steaming brew from his big ladle. "But remember," he warned, "the effects will wear off quite quickly." Caligula-Minus thought to himself that didn't matter. Once he had superhuman strength, he planned to steal the whole cauldron, contents and all. Then the Gauls would be helpless. "It's ready," announced Getafix solemnly, and he ladled out the first bowlful for the guest. "Here's the potion, Caligula-Minix." Caligula-Minus looked at it a little dubiously. Would it really be safe to drink? "This potion, do I potate it?" he asked. "Potate away," Asterix told him. Caligula-Minus put the bowl to his lips and drank. Glug, 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 glug. The potion certainly went down easily. He felt a wonderful warm glow of strength that seemed to spread all through him. He drained the bowl to its dregs, lowered it, and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, just the way his mother had told him not to back at home in Rome. "Tastes like vegetable soup," he said, slightly surprised. "That's the potion of the day," said Getafix. "It also comes in several other delicious flavours: shrimp, cheese omelette, duck with orange sauce, and vanilla." Even Druids are not above showing off a little on occasions. "All the same," said Caligula-Minus doubtfully, "I don't know that I really feel any different." "Try lifting that rock over there," said Getafix, pointing. The rock was massive, at least 3 times the size of Caligula-Minus himself. "This one?" asked Caligula-Minus, looking at it and bending down to do as the Druid said. "But I could never—" He was about to say he could never possibly lift something that big. But even as he spoke, he found he was raising the enormous heavy rock as easily as if it were a balloon. All the Gauls roared with kindly laughter at the expression of astonishment on his face. "Wow!" said Caligula-Minus, dancing about and juggling with the rock. "Whee! This is great! Look at me!" He tossed the rock up in the air and turned to invite the applause of the crowd. The rock came down again, Ka-plonk, right on top of Caligula-Minus, driving him into the ground. Fortunately, his horned helmet bore the brunt of the impact. Asterix and Obelix hauled the rock off the flattened Roman, and Getafix helped him out of the crater he had made. "You want to be a little more careful, Caligula-Minix," he said. "The potion makes you very strong, but not invulnerable. As it happens, I do have a recipe for an invulnerability potion, but that's another story." Slightly sobered, Caligula-Minus sat down for a moment to get his breath back and make plans to steal the cauldron. Vital statistics, held aloft on his official shield by his 2 official shield-bearers, saw that the moment had come for the party to begin. "I hereby declare the revels open," he announced. "What are we going to do now?" asked Caligula-Minus. "Dance," explained Astrix. Just then another Gaul waved to the bard Cacophonix, who came racing along with yet another musical instrument tucked under his arm, a fiddle this time. "Hi, Cacophonix!" shouted the Gaul. "We're waiting for you." Cacophonix was delighted. Just coming, he said, eagerly doing things to his fiddle, which was supposed to make it tuneful, but didn't. His moment of glory had come, because it was his job to be master of ceremonies as well as playing the music. "Now then, everybody, get in line," he said importantly, sawing away on the fiddle. "Take your partners, 1, 2, 3. Set to the right, set to the left." The Gauls formed up in 2 lines, in pairs, with Asterix taking Caligula-Minus as his partner, and they followed the instructions called out by the bard in time with his music, if you could call it music. "One line forward, the other line back," chanted Cacophonix. 1 line of Gauls advanced, and 1 retreated. "Set to your partner, shake him by the hand," chanted Cacophonix. Asterix shook Caligula-Minus by the hand. "Pull his moustache," chanted Cacophonix. "Pull his moustache," thought Caligula-Minus in alarm. He could see all too clearly what was about to happen next. Sure enough it did. As Obelix was cordially tugging at his own partner's big moustache, Asterix leant forward to do the same for Caligula-Minus. The false ginger moustache came off in his hands, leaving the face of a clean-shaven Roman legionary behind. "What on earth is this?" said Asterix, staring blankly at the hairy object in his hand. Recovering from the first of his fright, Caligula-Minus did a spot of quick thinking. It's a detachable moustache," he explained. The very latest fashion in Lutetia." But Asterix was glaring suspiciously at him. He became somewhat incoherent. "Oh, dear me, yes, absolutely the latest thing nowadays. Detachable moustaches." But Asterix was no fool. And to think he'd been so kind and helpful to someone he took for another Gaul in distress. It was very galling, so to speak, to have been taken in. "I don't believe you're a Gaul at all," he said slowly, putting 2 and 2 together. "I think you're a Roman spy." And he dropped the false moustache and lunged towards Caligula-Minus. However, he was just too late. The Roman had turned and made a dash for it. "Get him!" yelled Asterix, pointing after Caligula-Minus. The others who had been dancing weren't quick enough to catch on. Caligula-Minus slammed his way through a couple of men, sending them flying, and zoomed out of the village. Asterix was furious. Getafix tried to calm him down. "It's no use going after the man, Asterix. He's just had the potion. That makes him practically invincible." "Huh," said Asterix crossly, turning on the Druid. "So that spy is escaping thanks to your potion." Not surprisingly, Getafix took offence. "By my golden sickle, you were the one who wanted me to give him some," he pointed out reasonably. Asterix knew he was right, of course. "Well, never mind," he said. "The spy didn't learn much after all, and the effect of the potion will soon wear off." Meanwhile, Caligula-Minus was whizzing full speed through the forest, simply knocking over any trees that got in his way, making for the Roman camp of Compendium. By the time he reached it, he was going so fast he was practically flying. The wig with its false pigtails flew off his head, exposing his own short army haircut again. "Halt!" yelled the Roman sentry on guard at the gates of the camp, as he saw what seemed to be a Gaul zooming straight towards him. This was most unusual, since apart from the Gauls of the little village, the local population were far from keen to enter the fortified Roman camps in the usual way. "Quo vadis, Gaul?" he asked. "Where are you going?" But Caligula-Minus had no time to waste on social chit-chat. His encounter with the sentry was brief but memorable, and when the dust had cleared, the sentry was left wearing nothing but his army-issue underpants, with his shield, sandals, helmet and breastplate all knocked flying, and his spear well and truly broken. Caligula-Minus shot straight on, and burst unannounced into his commanding officer's tent. Centurion Christmas Bonus was enjoying a hearty meal as he reclined on his luxurious couch, and was not best pleased to be disturbed. But he perked up as soon as Caligula-Minus shouted triumphantly, "I know the Gaul's secret! It's a magic potion!" "Splendid, splendid!" cried Christmas Bonus, rising from his couch and tossing a ham bone over his shoulder. "Good work, man! Where is it?" "In here," said Caligula-Minus, proudly tapping his stomach. And he explained. "Right," said Christmas Bonus. "Call on, Caligula-Minus. I want to see the effects of this potion at work." He hauled the little legionary over to a place where his second-in-command, Marcus Ginnantonicus, was standing together with 3 huge, hefty, muscular soldiers in full armour. "Go on," said Christmas Bonus. "Knock 'em down." "Right," said Caligula-Minus, without a moment's hesitation. He rolled up the sleeves of his Gaulish disguise. The Roman soldiers fell about with mirth. "Him knock us down?" said the first legionary. "That's a good one, that is." "I shall die laughing, by Jupiter," said the second legionary. "Ave, Caligula-Minus," said Marcus Ginnantonicus solemnly, and he quoted what the gladiators said to Caesar when they went into the arena of the Circus Maximus. "Morituri te salutant." It meant, "We who are about to die salute you." Marcus Ginnantonicus thought he was being very witty. So did the fourth legionary, who was laughing too hard to be able to say anything at all. Next moment, none of them could say anything for other reasons. Biff, boom, bang, ka-plonk. One by one, in rapid succession, they went flying through the air. They stayed there for what seemed a remarkably long time, and finally came down again stunned. "There you are," said Caligula-Minus modestly, dusting off his hands. "Amazing," said Centurion Christmas Bonus. "Well, this potion certainly works," he added. "The trouble is, we really need to study its ingredients, and we haven't got any of it here." "Well, no," agreed Caligula-Minus. He could see that was a bit of a hitch. Marcus Ginnantonicus was just coming round. He felt groggy, and not at all kindly disposed towards Caligula-Minus. "You want to get hold of some of the potion, sir?" he asked Christmas Bonus. "Easy. All you have to do is open him up." And he pointed to the disguised legionary. Said Christmas Bonus thoughtfully. "Not a bad idea." No, you can't do that," squealed Caligula-Minus in alarm. Then he turned defiant. He'd just realized he could afford to be. "Try it, then. Come on, try it," he said, squaring up to take on all comers. "That was a good idea of yours, Marcus Ginnantonicus," Christmas Bonus told his second-in-command. "Only, as you can see, Caligula-Minus here won't cooperate. A pity, but there it is." He turned to the little legionary. "Just how long do the effects of this potion last, Caligula-Minus?" I really don't know," Caligula-Minus admitted. "Well, we'll soon find out," said the Centurion briskly. "Pick that rock up, Caligula-Minus." If anything, the rock was even larger than the one Caligula-Minus had picked up in the Gaulish village, but he picked it up with the greatest of ease and beamed triumphantly as commanding officer. "There you are again," he said. "See?" "Excellent," said Christmas Bonus, examining the weedy little man holding the enormous rock above his head. "Just keep holding it right there, Caligula-Minus. When it gets too heavy, we'll know the effects of the potion have worn off." Several hours passed by. Christmas Bonus had a comfortable chair and a footstool brought out of his tent, and sat down to await developments at his leisure. Marcus Ginnantonicus and the other 3 Roman soldiers Caligula-Minus had flattened gathered round to watch as well. Gradually it occurred to Caligula-Minus that there was something ominous in the way they were all staring at him. Still he stood there, holding up the rock, until suddenly his knees and elbows gave way, he began to perspire, and the rock crashed to the ground, with Caligula-Minus underneath it. This was the second time he'd been flattened by a rock that day. "Don't feel quite so strong now, eh?" inquired Christmas Bonus, as Caligula-Minus crawled out from underneath the rock, his head swimming. "No, the effects have worn off," gasped the legionary. Marcus Ginnantonicus was rubbing his hands gleefully. "Here goes!" he shouted, and he and the other 3 soldiers all fell on little Caligula-Minus.
But let's all keep calm, shall we?"
squeaked Caligula-Minus.
"Discuss this like gentlemen, shall we?"
But next moment he had disappeared from view in a cloud of dust as the 4 big Romans started thumping him. Christmas Bonus watched this last act in the show indulgently. But all the time he was mulling the situation over in his head. "I must get hold of the recipe for that potion," he murmured to himself. "Never mind pleasing Julius Caesar. Armed with the recipe, I could even become emperor myself. No longer Christmas Bonus, but Christmas Caesar. I always knew I was called to higher things than the command of a miserable little fortified camp in this Jupiter-forsaken Gaulish hole." And in his mind's eye he saw a beautiful vision of himself, crowned with the imperial laurel wreath, acknowledging the applause of the entire population of Rome, the eternal city. "What's more," he muttered, "I believe I know how to go about it." Next day, back in the Gaulish village, they'd got over the shock of being infiltrated by a spy. After all, the little Roman had done no real harm, and he hadn't got away with anything. On the contrary, he had left his ginger moustache behind. Not that it was the least use to any of the Gauls, who all had plenty of whiskers of their own. Getafix had used up rather a lot of ingredients, making such a big batch of potion the day before, and he decided he'd better go and pick some more in the forest to replenish his stocks. On his way out, he passed Asterix, sitting in the sun outside his front door. "I'm just off to pick some mistletoe in the forest," he said. "Like me to come with you, Druid?" asked Asterix. "It might be a sensible precaution if there are Romans about." "No, Asterix, you must stay here to guard the village," Getafix told him. "You may get your superhuman strength from the potion, but your intelligence and cunning are all your own. Vital Statistics is a good fellow, but you're the only person who can really be left in charge. It would be a disaster if we lost you. Anyway, I shan't be long." And he set off with his walking stick, his sickle, and a capacious leather pouch to take plants and herbs. He hummed an ancient Gaulish air to himself as he strode happily through the air of ancient Gaul, until suddenly and unexpectedly, when he was right out in the middle of the forest, the ground gave way beneath his feet. "Oops!" cried the Druid, as he disappeared into the trap. For a trap it was, a Druid trap, made of a pit dug in the ground and covered with twigs and soil to make it look natural. "Got him!" shouted a Roman legionary in triumph, emerging from the undergrowth. He was a huge man, called Tullius Octopus, and the trap had been his idea. Very soon, the captured Druid was helpless inside a large net slung over a wooden pole, being carried along by a couple of legionaries. He was struggling and swearing at the Romans, making it as hard as he possibly could for them to carry him. But they got him safe back to the Roman camp of Compendium. Tullius Octopus went to the centurion's tent to report. As usual, Christmas Bonus was enjoying a hearty meal. It consisted of 4 roast chickens this time. But as usual, he was ready to drop everything once there were any developments in his plan. "We got the Druid, oh Christmas Bonus," the legionary announced. "Good work, Tullius Octopus," said Christmas Bonus, hurrying out to inspect his prize. "As a reward, you shall have 100 sestertii, and you can go to Rome on leave to see the circus." "Oh, goody, goody gumdrops," cried Tullius Octopus happily, dancing with glee. "I'm going to see the circus, I'm going to see the circus." "Now, Druid," said Christmas Bonus, turning to his captive, "you will tell me your secret." "It's what you think," Getafix snapped back. Even bundled up inside a net, he could still be defiant. Not for nothing did he almost always win the coveted title Druid of the Year, when the Druids held their great meetings in the forest. But Christmas Bonus thought he knew how to deal with defiant Druids. Rubbing his hands with glee, he made his plans. "We'll torture the Druid," he chuckled nastily, rubbing his hands with anticipation. "And he'll talk all right." A little later, Getafix was out of the net again, but tied to a stout wooden table in the middle of a large orange and yellow torture tent, while a vast muscular torturer, wearing a green kilt and iron bracelets, tickled his feet with a feather. It was supposed to be excruciatingly painful, but he got no rise out of Getafix at all. Either the Druid was exercising magic powers, or he just didn't have ticklish feet. Every now and then Christmas Bonus popped in to see how things were going, and asked, "Well, are you talking?" "No, you are," Getafix pointed out. After several hours of this, the torturer was quite worn out. His feather-wielding arm was stiff. Christmas Bonus was starting to lose his temper. "Look here, Druid, this isn't funny," he said severely, as he paced impatiently up and down the torture tent. "Here we've been torturing you for hours and hours. It doesn't even seem to hurt. This won't help you." "Oh, yes, it will," said Getafix mildly. "It'll help to pass the time." Christmas Bonus tried the soft approach. "Druid," he said enticingly, "if you talk, I can make you rich and powerful." "No," said Getafix. "You'll have sestertii," promised the Centurion. "Loads of sestertii." He bent over Getafix, holding out his arms to show just how many heaps of coins he could offer. "No," said Getafix. The Centurion turned away, mopping his brow and trying to control his temper. "Look, is this torture going on much longer?" asked Getafix. "I've got better things to do, you know." His own temper was beginning to fray. Christmas Bonus left the torture tent, muttering, "This Druid's magic powers are too much for me. And is he ever pig-headed?" By now, Astrix was beginning to think the Druid had been gone rather a long time. Obelix, out delivering a Mania, saw his friend looking worried. "What's the matter, Asterix?" he asked. "Getafix went to the forest to pick mistletoe, and he hasn't come back," said Astrix. "There's no shortage of the stuff out there. He must surely have picked as much as he can carry by now." And he made up his mind to take action. "I'm going to look for him," he said. "Watch out, Asterix," Obelix warned. "It's a long time since you had any magic potion." "Oh, I'm relying on my own cunning to find the Druid," Astrix told him. And waving goodbye, he left the village behind and marched off along the forest path, yelling, "Druid! Cooey! Druid!" at the top of his voice. After a while, the path led him to the Roman road. By comparison, this was a very grand affair, paved with flat stones, perfectly straight. The Romans were famous for the fine straight roads they built in all their conquered territories. Astrix paused. "Here's the Roman road," he murmured. "I wonder if it's any use going that way. By two darties, what a lot of traffic!" The traffic consisted of a cart drawn by two handsome white oxen, and full of hay. Its driver, a Gaulish peasant in a patched blue smock, was sitting by a milestone which said M1 on it. Astrix supposed that meant something to the Romans who had built the road, though he couldn't imagine what. However, he was a tender-hearted person, and it struck him that the driver of the cart looked very unhappy. So he went over and tapped the man on the shoulder. "You look worried, friend," he said. "What's up?" The poor man moaned. "My gods, what am I to do?" he said, and he explained his problem. "I'm an ox dealer, but if I sell these two oxen, I won't have anything left to pull my cart. And then how do I get home?" Astrix thought for a moment. "I'll tell you what," he said. "Why not change your job? Be a cart dealer instead of an ox dealer. Then you can sell your cart and take your oxen home." "Wonderful, marvellous, brilliant idea!" cried the man, jumping happily to his feet and shaking Asterix's hand with great enthusiasm. "You've solved all my problems. You're a genius. How can I ever repay you?" "You're welcome," said Astrix. "Just tell me something. Have you seen a Druid pass this way gathering mistletoe?" "No," said the ox dealer, who was going to be a cart dealer. "Well, there was a Druid pass this way all right, but not gathering mistletoe. Some legionaries were taking him to compendium in a string bag." "What?" screeched Astrix in horror, almost taking off in his alarm. The dealer and his oxen looked at him in great surprise. But Asterix had no time to explain. Clutching the ox-dealer, he begged, "Take me to Compendium, quick!" "But I'm not going that way," protested the startled man. "Then you should," said Asterix firmly, scrambling up into the cart. "Compendium's the biggest cart mart hereabouts, and just now the second-hand cart show is on. You'll easily sell your cart there." "So I will," agreed the ox-dealer, urging his oxen on again. "Thanks. What a stroke of luck meeting you." After a while, the cart topped a slight rise in the Roman road, and the camp of Compendium came in sight. At this point it struck Asterix that he'd better not ride in openly. He might easily be recognized by the Roman legionaries, who had descriptions of the most important Gauls of the little village. He wasn't quite sure where his new friend the ox-dealer's loyalties lay, either. To be on the safe side, he shot to the back of the cart and burrowed head first into its load of hay. "Hey!" said the surprised dealer. "Why are you hitting the hay?" I want to play a practical joke on my friends the Romans, that's all," said Asterix. Oh, that's rich, that is," said the dealer, laughing uproariously. "I love a nice practical joke, I do. Ho, and he went on chuckling away to himself as the cart rolled towards the great gates of Compendium. Hidden among the hay at the back, Asterix was thinking it was just his luck to have met such a prize idiot of an ox-dealer. He just hoped the man wouldn't do anything to draw attention to himself. The last thing they wanted was to have Roman soldiers poking their spears into the hay to make sure it didn't contain anything else. As of course it did. It contained one rebel Gaul, the sort Julius Caesar would dearly love to put out of action. Sure enough, the dealer was challenged as he drove his ox-cart in through the gates. "Halt!" shouted the sentry. "Who goes there?" The ox-dealer couldn't speak for laughing. "What have you got in that cart, friend?" asked the sentry. "Nothing," said the ox-dealer, trying to keep a straight face and failing. He burst into another fit of chuckling. This naturally made the sentry suspicious. "By Jupiter, are you trying to make a fool of me?" he asked. The ox-dealer's laughter redoubled. He was fairly splitting his sides now. Asterix lay still in the hay at the back of the cart, with only his eyes showing. "This fathead will ruin everything," he thought to himself. Luckily, another Roman soldier came by just then, and saw that the sentry was hesitating. "What's up, Gracchus Sextilius?" he asked. "This ox-dealer's being funny, Claudius Quintilius," said the sentry. Claudius Quintilius took a look at the ox-dealer, who sat there looking as if he might burst into laughter again any minute. "Oh, I know him, Gracchus," he said. "You can let him pass, he's quite harmless." Asterix breathed a sigh of relief, and the cart moved on, past the tall wooden watchtowers by the gateway, and into the enclosure of the camp itself, where handsome Roman tents stood thick on the ground. "Here we are in the camp," the ox-dealer called back to his passenger. "Are you going to play your practical joke now?" he added hopefully. No, Asterix whispered back from the hay. "It's getting dark. I'll wait till morning. It'll be funnier then." "Oh, right. I see," said the ox-dealer, slightly disappointed. "Well, I'll be looking forward to it. Better kip down for the night now." And he took his oxen out of the shafts, gave them some of the hay to eat, spread a green blanket on the ground, and wrapped himself comfortably up in it. "Good night," he called to Asterix. Soon afterwards, when dusk was falling, and the ox-dealer was snoring happily away, Asterix slipped out of the hay in the cart. "And now to find where they've got our Druid," he muttered to himself, as he took a look around the outsides of the various tents. He soon spotted one which looked rather grander than the others. It was white with gold embroidery, and a handsome canopy outside the tent entrance. "Let's just try this one," murmured Asterix, scurrying over to it and lurking outside in the shelter of the canopy. Sure enough, he had picked Centurion Christmas Bonus's very own tent. And inside, the Centurion had company. Asterix pricked up his ears. "Recline and have a bite to eat, O Marcus Ginantonicus, my trusty number 2, said Christmas Bonus hospitably. As usual, he was enjoying a hearty meal as he reclined on his handsome green couch. This time it was sucking pig, and a beautiful bowl of fruit. If Christmas Bonus went on at this rate, he was going to be so fat he'd have to get another and specially reinforced couch sent out from Rome. But Marcus Ginnantonicus, who was a tall, thin man himself, was delighted to join him. "Thanks, Christmas bonus," he said, reclining on another couch, helping himself to supper. "The thing is," said Christmas bonus confidentially, "I want a private word with you. We simply must get the Druid's recipe. With it, we shall be invincible. Then we can go to Rome and take over from Caesar." Although he had his ambitions, Marcus Ginnantonicus had never aimed quite so high. "You mean Julius Caesar?" he asked, a bit startled. "Precisely. Julius," agreed Christmas bonus, lowering his voice yet further. However, Astrix could still just hear him. "The two of us," continued Christmas bonus, clinking goblets of wine with Marcus Ginnantonicus, "will form a triumvirate and govern the Roman Empire." A triumvirate really meant 3 men, but Marcus Ginnantonicus had never been particularly good at maths at school, and he got the general idea. And now that Christmas bonus had put ambitious notions into his head, his mind was racing. He might not be much good at counting, but he knew how Roman politics worked. Indeed, as he and Christmas bonus drank a toast to their conspiracy, Christmas bonus was thinking, "I need you now, but later I'll be the triumvirate on my own," while Marcus Ginnantonicus was thinking, "I'll have him thrown to the lions, and then I alone will be Caesar." Asterix had heard enough. "All very interesting," he said to himself, moving away from the centurion's tent in the darkness. "But it doesn't tell me where to find the Druid, although they've certainly got him here." And then he spotted 2 large heavyweight Romans standing guard outside an orange tent. It was, of course, the torture tent, where we last saw the Druid Getafix. "Hang on," thought Asterix. "I'll bet he's in that heavily guarded tent. I think the bold approach would be best." He emerged from the shadows and marched straight up to the heavyweight legionaries, standing one each side of the tent entrance. "Excuse me," said Asterix casually. "Mind if I go in? I've just come to rescue Getafix the Druid. He's a friend of mine. Thanks." And he marched in past the startled legionaries. It was a moment before they fully took in what they'd heard. Then they did a double-take. The brighter of the 2 heavyweights jumped on his companion, hissing, "Don't let him out! Know what that was? That was one of those invincible Gauls. Must have been magic potion fairly oozing out of his ears. You wait here. I'm going for reinforcements." And he zoomed off, having pinched the safest job for himself. His friend was left outside the tent, shaking, legs like jelly. "Very well, but please don't be long, Caius Fleabitus," he begged pitifully. Inside the tent, Getafix was still tied to the table. He sat up as far as he could when he saw his friend come in, exclaiming in alarm, "Asterix, it's you!" "All well?" asked Asterix briskly. "By bellissima, Asterix," said Getafix, swearing by a goddess of the ancient Gauls this time. "This is madness, venturing right into the jaws of the Roman wolf. Surely you know the Romans can't do a thing against my magic powers." "Exactly," said Asterix. "We'll have some fun with them. I've got a few ideas." And he rapidly told Getafix what those ideas were. Meanwhile, Caius Fleabitus was racing for his commanding officer's tent. Yelling, "Sir! Sir!" he burst in without ceremony, hanging on to his helmet. Christmas bonus and Marcus Ginnantonicus did not look pleased to be interrupted in mid-conspiracy. "Now what?" asked the centurion testily. "We've captured a Gaul," gasped Fleabitus, arms flailing like the sails of a windmill as he gabbled out his news. "We've captured a Gaul in the Druid's tent, one of that invincible sort, but we need reinforcements to stop our prisoner getting away. Quick!" That roused Christmas bonus all right. If the Druid was rescued, all his plans would come to nothing. "By Jupiter!" he cried, jumping up. "Sound the alarm! Rouse the whole camp!" And in no time the alarm was being sounded on long Roman trumpets. As the sun rose, the entire garrison was gathered outside the orange torture tent, spears pointing forwards and shields defensively arranged side by side over their heads. This was a famous Roman battle formation known as the tortoise. Christmas bonus, who knew there was an indomitable Gaul inside that tent, kept well behind his men, leading from the rear. "Surrender, Gaul!" he shouted, "or I give the order to attack!" Nothing happened. The Roman soldiers waited in suspense, backs bent under their shields. "Well, is he surrendering or isn't he?" one legionary asked his neighbour. "All this waiting is getting me down," said his friend. "Watch out!" Christmas Bonus shouted. "Here he comes!" The small figure of Astrix emerged from the orange tent. Standing in the entrance, he announced, "I lay down my weapon at your feet, Centurion, just as our chief Virking Getafix laid his own arms at the feet of your master Caesar." And he drew his sword with a flourish and flung it on the ground at his feet. But the sight of an indomitable Gaul and a drawn sword had been too much for the trembling Roman legionaries. To a man, they dropped their shields and swords and ran for it, leaving Astrix confronting a whole pile of discarded weapons as well as his own. "Well, come on, do something," said Astrix, irritated. "I surrender. I told you so before. I can't hang about all day, you know." And he folded his arms and waited. Centurion Christmas Bonus cautiously peered round the side of a tent. "Seize him, you lily-livered lot," he bawled, "or I'll send you to the circus to be thrown to the lions." The legionaries peered round the sides of all the other tents, behind which they had taken refuge. "The circus," said a legionary. "The lions," said another legionary. "Oh, well," said a third legionary, sighing philosophically. And the Romans emerged from hiding and made a lunge for Astrix. Astrix just stood there, putting up no resistance at all. But they didn't feel safe until two legionaries had wound a long, stout, heavy metal chain all round him, leaving only his head and feet sticking out. They stood back, mopping their brows with relief. Then they picked up the chain-wrapped Gaul and chucked him into the orange torture tent. Just then the ox dealer came strolling by. He'd heard a certain amount of noise. "What's up?" he asked. "Oh, nothing," said the legionaries, quite cheerful now. "Just a Gaul who got into the camp." "It's not fair," grumbled the ox dealer as he went on his way. "He didn't wait for me to wake up before he played his practical joke. I always miss the best bits. It's not fair." Meanwhile, Christmas Bonus had entered the tent to gloat over his second prisoner. Now he had the two of them in his hands. His hopes of getting a recipe for the potion and seizing power in Rome had revived. He looked happily at Getafix, still tied to the table, and Asterix, loaded down by chains. "You refuse to talk, Druid," he said nastily. "But perhaps your friend here will prove more loquacious under torture." And he strode out of the tent, flinging his cloak around him in a very imperial way. "I'll be Caesar yet," he told himself grandly. "Caesar or nothing." Asterix and Getafix, alone in the tent, burst into laughter. They laughed till they could hardly speak. "I'll be loquacious, all right," gasped Asterix. "I'll loquace like no one ever loquaced before." "Quiet," said Getafix suddenly. "Someone's coming." Two legionaries reluctantly entered the tent. They'd been told off to bring the Gauls to Christmas Bonus, and they were afraid Astrix might have changed his mind about surrendering. One of them cautiously untied Getafix and unchained Astrix, while his companion, keeping well behind his shield, watched for any trouble. But the Gauls were perfectly cooperative, as the two legionaries marched them off, with a spear pointing at the Druid's back. Christmas Bonus was waiting for them in another tent, sitting in one of his comfortable chairs on a leopard-skin rug, with his feet on a cushion. And behind him was a stout table obviously equipped for sinister practices. There were chains and metal cuffs riveted to the wood to hold a torture victim's wrists and ankles. Asterix and Getafix folded their arms and looked the Romans straight in the eye. "You, Gaul," said Christmas Bonus to Asterix, "do you know the secret of the magic potion?" "Me?" said Asterix innocently. "No." Christmas Bonus rose to his feet and pointed menacingly at Getafix. "For the last time, Druid," he said, "give me that recipe, or I'll have your little friend here tortured." The Gauls still faced him defiantly. "I fear no torture," Asterix announced. "I have complete confidence in the courage of my friend Asterix," said Getafix. "We'll see about that," said Christmas Bonus grimly. All this was taking far too long for his liking. He was beginning to lose his temper. "Tie this Gaul to the table and send for the torturer," he yelled. The torturer came hurrying in. Here I am, he said happily, "ever ready." He must have got his Boy Scout badges for torture as a child, and he obviously loved his job. He was carrying all sorts of fearsome equipment, pincers, chains, hammers, and a cask of water. For a start, he set about fixing Asterix to the specially equipped table. However, he'd only just got Asterix's wrists clamped down and was starting on his ankles when the Gauls went into the act they'd agreed on in advance. Astrix suddenly began to sob and scream. "Mercy! Mercy! I can't stand it! Stop! Have mercy!" The torturer looked surprised, as well he might. Getafix clutched his forehead and turned to Christmas Bonus. "Stop, for the love of Tutatis," he begged in a quavery voice. "I can't bear to hear him suffer. I'll tell you all." "Splendid, splendid," said Christmas Bonus, rubbing his hands. "Torturer, stop." "I haven't even started yet," protested the bewildered torturer. However, he unchained Asterix from the table and carried all his equipment out of the tent again, looking disappointed. "Now then, Druid," said Christmas Bonus to Getafix, "show us how to cook that recipe of yours, or we'll cook your friend's goose." "Mercy!" gasped Asterix once again for the sake of dramatic effect, as he sat up. "I will prepare the potion before your very eyes," Getafix assured the centurion. "But I need several ingredients from the forest. I don't carry a whole store cupboard around with me, you know. In fact, I was picking ingredients when your men so rudely interrupted me yesterday." "You shall have all you need, anything," said Christmas Bonus impatiently. He shouted to his men, "Give the Druid an escort out into the forest. I'm keeping the other Gaul here as a hostage for his good behaviour." Soon Getafix was off to the forest, with a couple of well-armed legionaries behind him. "First, a spot of mistletoe," he said, climbing an oak tree to pick it, and drop it on the waiting legionaries below. "Now, a few roots," he added, grubbing busily away in the ground and throwing up mud into the legionaries' faces. "And herbs, and wild flowers, and this, that, and the other," continued Getafix happily, piling it all into the Roman's arms. It wasn't often he had someone to carry the stuff home for him. By the time the legionaries reached the camp of compendium again, you could hardly see them beneath their coating of mud and all the vegetation they were covered with. "The Druid is back with mistletoe, roots, herbs, and wild flowers," they reported to Christmas Bonus. "He says he wants a cauldron." "Then give him a cauldron, you fools!" screeched Christmas Bonus, his nerves frayed to breaking point with the suspense of it all. Soon Getafix had his cauldron set up out of doors over a hearth of stones, just the way he did it when he brewed potion at home in the Gaulish village. And in a little while a savoury-smelling liquid was coming to the boil inside the cauldron. "A pinch of salt, a dash of pepper, let it all simmer over a low flame," murmured Getafix. "Yes, yes, faster, faster," begged Christmas Bonus. "Wait a moment," said Getafix, as if he had suddenly remembered something. "There's one ingredient missing. I quite forgot. Something very important. Can't make the potion properly without it." "What is it?" implored Christmas Bonus, the sweat flying off him in his suspense. What?" "Strawberries," said the Druid. "Strawberries?" gasped poor Christmas Bonus. "At this time of year?" "And of course it won't be easy to get hold of any. We could always wait for the strawberry season," suggested Getafix. "But that's months away," said Christmas Bonus. "No, I can't wait. Quick," he told the waiting legionary. "Send out messengers. Strawberries. I must have strawberries at the double." And he sped the poor man on his way with a hefty kick. So the messengers set off from the fortified camp of compendium, leaving Asterix and Getafix to wait in comfort in a tent luxuriously equipped with some of the centurion's own furniture. They ate as well as Christmas Bonus himself. He was determined to have their willing cooperation until they had brewed him the magic potion. "You get some really good ideas, Asterix," said Getafix, several days after the messengers had left, as he sat enjoying a goblet of Christmas Bonus's good wine.
"That was a fruitful suggestion of your own, sending him off after strawberries," said Asterix.
He was reclining on the Centurion's couch, toying with a nice roast chicken.
"We're having a nice holiday at Caesar's expense,"
he added happily. Christmas Bonus was nothing like so happy. He was pacing up and down his tent, wondering where on earth his messengers had got to.
"It's days since they left to look for strawberries, and not one has returned yet," he muttered furiously.
Just then a legionary stuck his head through the tent opening with welcome news.
"The messengers are back, Christmas Bonus," he said.
"About time, too," said Christmas Bonus, racing out to meet them. 4 weary, travel-stained legionaries with bowed shoulders, propping themselves up on their spears, greeted him correctly.
"Ave, Christmas Bonus!"
"Ave, ave, boys," said the Centurion eagerly. "Well, did you get the strawberries?" "No," said the first legionary.
"Not a strawberry,"
said the second legionary.
"We looked everywhere,"
said the third legionary. The Centurion was beginning to look very angry indeed. He had no patience with failure.
"Tullius Octopus isn't back yet,"
said the fourth legionary in a hurry, hoping to avert the Centurion's wrath. But just at that moment another voice was heard, the voice of Tullius Octopus, the fifth messenger.
"Here I am, O Christmas Bonus."
He came panting up, as travel-worn as the others, but he was carrying a little basket of strawberries.
"I found strawberries, O Christmas Bonus,"
he announced triumphantly.
"I bought 'em for a vast sum from a Greek merchant I happened to meet."
"Give them here!" cried the excited Centurion. Gloating over the tiny basket of juicy red berries, he added, "And this time, Tullius Octopus, I really mean it. As a reward, you can go home on leave to see all the fun of the circus."
"Yoo-hoo!"
cried the happy but gullible Tullius Octopus.
I'm going to the circus, goody-goody gumdrops."
Now at last, thought Christmas Bonus, the potion could be brewed properly. He bore the strawberries in triumph into the tent where the 2 Gauls were staying. "Druid, here are the strawberries you ordered for the magic potion." Getafix leant forward in his chair to inspect the fruit.
"Oh, what do you think of them, Astrix?" he asked.
Astrix, reclining at his ease, propped himself on one elbow to take a look. "Not up to much," he pronounced. Christmas Bonus's face was a study. Getafix ate one. He said thoughtfully. Asterix ate one too. "Not bad, after all," he said. In about 5 minutes, they'd polished off the entire contents of the basket. "Come to think of it, those were excellent strawberries," said Asterix graciously.
"Yes, just the sort I need," agreed Getafix. "Go and get me some more," he told Christmas Bonus, handing back the empty basket.
Christmas Bonus looked as if he might explode. He was scarlet in the face as the strawberries themselves, his clenched fists quivering. Next moment he practically did explode, jumping up and down on the spot in his rage and frustration.
"You've eaten my strawberries,"
he wailed.
"and now you haven't got any strawberries, and you want more strawberries, and it's not fair, and I've just about had all I can take."
And he collapsed, sobbing against the wall of the tent.
Don't take on so," said the kindly Druid, patting his enemy on the back. "Never mind. We'll make you your potion."
"Of course we will," agreed Asterix.
"We can always make the potion without
strawberries," explained Getafix, leading the way out of the tent.
"Only it won't be quite the same. The strawberries add a certain refinement of flavour," said Asterix.
The Centurion, limp with emotion and still sniffing, followed them, decidedly subdued. But he cheered up as Getafix got the fire going under the cauldron again. Soon its contents were bubbling away nicely. Christmas Bonus and Marcus Dinantonicus stood beside the 2 Gauls watching, and the rest of the garrison of Compendium waited in line opposite them.
"It's done,"
Getafix announced, raising a steaming ladle from the cauldron.
"Serve piping hot."
"Give it here," demanded the Centurion, snatching the ladle and carrying it to his mouth. At the last moment he stopped. His suspicions of the Gauls had revived.
How do I know this soup isn't poisoned by Jupiter? He asked.
"I'll drink some if you like, by two tarties," said Asterix helpfully.
I don't like, said the canny Christmas bonus. If this is the real stuff, your strength will increase tenfold and you'll be invincible. Nothing doing. Ha! You thought you tricked me, didn't you? No, I need a volunteer.
And he and Marcus Gin and Tonicus glared at their assembled troops.
I said I need a volunteer, yelled Christmas bonus.
But volunteering was not a popular pastime among the garrison of Compendium. And anyway, they'd just seen their commanding officer refuse to drink the potion himself in case it might be poisoned. As before, the men turned to make casual conversation among themselves, showing off their Latin. "Quid novi?" one legionary casually asked his friend, meaning, "What's new?" "Sursum corda," said another legionary. "Cheer up, everyone."
"I need a volunteer," shouted Christmas bonus for the third time.
"So what?" said a third legionary defiantly. Marcus Gin and Tonicus had an idea.
"Oh, Christmas bonus, we don't want to risk a Roman legionary's life," he said. "We ought to experiment on some harmless native."
Just then a harmless native happened to come strolling by. It was the ox dealer, who had helped Asterix to reach Compendium. He was surprised to see all the Roman soldiers turn to him with smiles of satisfaction, while the centurion himself beckoned him over. Christmas bonus seemed to be in a very friendly mood.
"Nice to see you, old chap,"
he told the dealer jovially.
"And how's life treating you these days?"
"Me?" said the bewildered dealer, who wasn't used to hobnobbing with Roman top brass, and couldn't make out for the life of him why Christmas bonus was speaking as if they were old friends.
"Well, life's not treating me too well since you ask," he said. "I met a man who said I'd sell my cart at Compendium, and so he got me to come here. And now no one wants to buy my cart, and I need my oxen, and—"
But here he suddenly caught sight of Asterix.
"And it's all his fault,"
he finished, pointing at the little Gaul.
"That's the very man." "I can't say I quite followed your story," said Christmas bonus, "but never mind. Have a drink to cheer you up."
And he dipped the big ladle into the bubbling cauldron.
"No, thank you, really," said the dealer. "Must be on my way. I'll try to sell my cart at the next camp, I think."
He tried to move off, but Christmas bonus had a firm grip on his arm.
"Have some,"
he insisted, hauling the dealer back again.
"Oh, all right, since you're so pressing," said the man, raising the ladle to his lips.
Christmas bonus watched intently as he drank the contents of the ladle. So did the rest of the garrison, crowding in on their human guinea pig. He was startled to see them all staring at him as he lured the ladle from his lips.
"Why are you all looking at me like that?"
he asked.
"Haven't you ever seen a cart dealer drinking soup before?"
"After drinking that potion," Astrix told him solemnly,
"you're the strongest man in the world."
"Am I really?" inquired the astonished ox dealer. Then he remembered that Astrix had told him he was going to play practical jokes.
"Oh, that's a good un," he chuckled. "This little fellow's a great joker, he is."
"Is he?" said Christmas bonus.
"Well, we shall now find out. Hit someone."
"But I'm not cross with anyone," protested the ox dealer.
"A volunteer for a punch on the jaw," shouted Christmas bonus.
He ought to have known by now that it was useless asking his men to volunteer. Yet again they turned to each other, leant on their spears, and started chatting in Latin.
"Vanitas vanitatum et omnia vanitas," said the first legionary in line.
Vanity of vanities, all is vanity.
"De facto," the second legionary told him, "and that's a fact." "Quomodo vales?" asked the third legionary, solicitously turning to the fourth legionary.
"How are you doing, mate?"
"Very well, thank you," said the fourth legionary politely.
"When I ask for a volunteer, I'd like a little more enthusiasm and a little less Latin," bellowed the infuriated Christmas bonus. Asterix stepped smartly forward.
"I volunteer," he said.
"Ha! An excellent notion," said Christmas bonus.
"Go on, hit me,"
Asterix told the ox dealer.
"Go on, hit him,"
urged Christmas bonus.
"Go on, hit him then," said all the legionaries encouragingly.
The ox dealer put out his fist and gave Asterix the lightest of punches on the jaw. To his amazement,
Astrix instantly fell flat on his back. "Did it hurt?" asked Getafix, rushing to his friend's assistance. "I thought the sky had fallen on my head," said Astrix, sitting up and pretending to be half-stunned. The ox-dealer was greatly surprised. He'd hardly touched the little man. As for Christmas bonus, he was prancing about in delight. It had worked, or so he thought. "Well, you don't need me any more, I'll be off," said the ox-dealer. He couldn't make any of this out at all, and was anxious to be out of the company of people who behaved so oddly. The legionaries flinched back as he passed through their ranks, just in case he decided to try punching them too. Shaking his head in bewilderment, he climbed into his cart and urged his oxen on, and soon he was out through the gates of Compendium and driving along the Roman road again. He was not a very bright ox-dealer, and it took a little while for the significance of what had just happened to sink in. When it did, he was delighted. "Wait a moment," he said to himself a few miles down the road. "If I got it right, I'm very strong now. That's great. It means I can sell my oxen after all, and pull the cart home myself." A few miles further along the road, he put up his hand to stroke his chin. His face seemed remarkably hairy. In the usual way, the only whiskers he wore were in the form of a rather sparse moustache. A few miles further on yet, he had a big, bushy moustache, a lot of beard on his chin, and his hair had grown several inches. By the time he was halfway to the next camp, his beard was brushing his chest, and he could hardly see the road ahead because of all the long hair in his eyes. "That potion certainly does have magic powers," murmured the ox-dealer to himself. Back in Compendium, the Romans had no idea of the strange transformation that was coming over their human guinea pig. They were all eager to drink the wonderful potion. Christmas bonus, as commanding officer, had first go. He even plunged into the cauldron head first. Marcus Ginnantonicus made sure all the legionaries got their share. They eagerly queued up, while Asterix and Getafix, who knew that the brew was not really the magic potion which gave the drinker superhuman strength after all, but that it did have certain other after-effects, awaited further developments with a little smile on their faces. "Our road to Rome is clear, O Marcus Ginnantonicus," said Christmas bonus, happily presiding over the distribution of the potion. "Caesar's days are numbered. Druid, give us that recipe in writing, and once I have it," he confided to his second-in-command, "we'll get rid of these two Gauls. They're of no further use to us." "Here's hair on your chest," said Marcus Ginnantonicus. Little did he know what he was saying. "And now, to try out my new strength," said Christmas bonus, advancing confidently on a vast tree that had just been felled and was lying about the camp. He strained and struggled to shift it, growing bright red in the face. He went. Beads of sweat formed on his brow. It was no good. "Set my sights just a bit too high," he murmured. "I'll try this." And he turned to pick up a rock about the size of the one he had seen Caligula-Minus lift and hold so easily before the effects of the potion wore off. He went, puffing and panting and straining and going red in the face. Perhaps a smaller one. At last he found a stone he could lift quite easily. It was no bigger than a couple of bricks, really, but Christmas bonus felt a great sense of achievement. "I've done it!" he cried gleefully. "I'm a Superman!" "Amazing," said Asterix, keeping a straight face. Christmas bonus," said Marcus Ginnantonicus, coming over. "Yes, what?" asked Christmas bonus. "There's nothing so very amazing about lifting that pebble," Marcus Ginnantonicus pointed out. Realization dawned on Christmas bonus. He looked at the stone. "True," he said, and dropped it. It fell on his second-in-command's toe, and even if Ginnantonicus had called it a pebble, it was big enough to hurt him quite a lot. "Ouch!" cried Marcus Ginnantonicus, hopping about on one foot. Christmas bonus made furiously for Asterix and Getafix. "You fooled me, you beasts! There's no magic in that potion," he shouted. Strange to say, his chin, shaved only an hour or so ago, was beginning to look very stubbly. "Oh, yes, there is," said Asterix. He couldn't keep a straight face any longer, nor could Getafix. They fell into each other's arms, laughing helplessly. What on earth is the joke? Wondered Christmas Bonus, stroking his chin. It had quite a lot of white beard on it by now. Oh, Christmas Bonus, can't we get even with these Gauls? Gasped Marcus Ginantonicus, still hopping. His commanding officer turned to look at him, and was startled to see the amount of black stubble on his face. You might have shaved before coming to see me, he snapped, like the disciplinarian he was. A self-respecting legionary should be clean-shaven. But I did shave, Marcus Ginantonicus protested. Then he put his hands to his own face and felt the growth of beard on it. Then he looked at Christmas Bonus. Maybe, he said, tapping the centurion on the chest, to which his white beard now nearly reached. But a self-respecting centurion should practice what he preaches. Christmas Bonus put his hands to his own face. Here, what's happening to us? He asked, beginning to realize. Look, cried Marcus Ginantonicus, turning and pointing to the rest of the garrison. They stood to attention, spears and shields in hand, and every one of them had a tremendous and very recent growth of hair and beard. Some had dark hair, some had fair hair, some had curly hair, some had straight hair, but they all had a great deal of it, and beards to match coming halfway down their chests. Christmas Bonus swung round and made accusingly for Getafix. What's going on here, Druid? He demanded. It's an ancient recipe for hair lotion, Getafix explained. Extremely powerful. Your hair and beards are going to grow very fast, non-stop. I'll kill you, screeched Christmas Bonus, making for the Gauls. Give me the antidote. Tut, tut, said Astrix reprovingly. That's not very logical, is it? If you kill us, we can't make you any antidote, can we? Besides, he added, turning and walking away with the Druid, we feel a little tired today. We're going to have a rest in our tent, said Getafix. Wait! Yelled Christmas Bonus, starting off after them. His feet became entangled in his beard, and he fell flat on his face. What happened to Christmas Bonus? Asked his second-in-command, hurrying to help him up. What do you think? Snapped Christmas Bonus. I tripped over my beard, idiot! Soon afterwards, having tied up his beard in several knots to prevent the same thing happening again, and with his hair tied up in a series of knots as well to keep it out of his eyes, the centurion was pacing up and down his tent. I'm at the mercy of those Gauls, he told himself furiously. They've got us by the short hairs, and no mistake. I'll just have to strike a bargain with them. And he set off to visit his enemies. On the way he realized how right he was. His men were fully occupied, giving each other shaves and haircuts with any sharp instrument they could find. Scissors, razors, even swords and sickles. They were waist-deep in hair by now. It was no good. As fast as they cut the stuff, it started growing again. Christmas Bonus cast a glance of fury at the cauldron over the now cold hearth as he passed it. At so-and-so cauldron where they brewed that such-and-such potion, he muttered angrily, and he let off steam by kicking it over. It fell on its side. A little dog came along and lapped up the dregs that trickled out of it. Christmas Bonus found Asterix and Getafix resting comfortably on his own handsome furniture outside their tent, eating fruit and drinking wine in a leisurely sort of way. 3,450, said Asterix as the centurion approached. What did you say? Asked Christmas Bonus. It's a new game we've invented called Beaver, said Asterix, casually tossing a half-eaten apple over his shoulder. Every time we see a man with a beard, we score 15 points. The one with the highest score wins. Getafix, whose own impressive white beard now looked very small compared to the centurion's, tried to muffle his laughter, but he didn't bother to try very hard. With a mighty effort, Christmas Bonus controlled himself. You're making fun of me, Gaul, he said grimly, but I have to talk to you. Talk away, said Astrix amiably. Let's not split any hairs. He and Getafix laughed a lot at this latest witty sally. Christmas Bonus did not appreciate it half as much. The little dog that had lapped up the dregs of potion rushed by, yapping furiously. It was now nothing but a ball of long fur. Will you kindly shut up about hair? Yelled Christmas Bonus, losing his self-control and jumping up and down with rage. Well, if you will beard us in our own tent, what do you expect? Said Astrix, pretending to sound offended and turning away, while Getafix laughed more than ever. No, don't go, said Christmas Bonus hastily. All right, but keep your hair on, or this talk will bristle with difficulties, Astrix warned him. By this time, Getafix was rolling on the ground laughing. "I give in," said Christmas Bonus. "Give me the antidote, and you can go free." "Antidote," said Getafix vaguely. "You could always try a hair of the dog." "Getafix may not remember the antidote. He's a bit harebrained sometimes," said Astrix, which set Getafix off laughing again. But the apoplectic face of the unfortunate centurion eventually sobered the Druid up. Getafix was beginning to feel quite sorry for Christmas Bonus. There, don't distress yourself, we agree," he said kindly. "But I'll have to go and fetch ingredients from the forest." "I'll arrange an escort," promised Christmas Bonus. As he hurried away to do so, he was thinking, "I may not have the secret of the magic potion, but as soon as I've got rid of this surplus hair, I shall eliminate those 2 Gauls. It will give me moral satisfaction." "Getafix, why were you so quick to accept that centurion's offer?" asked Asterix. "I'm sure he means mischief. It's no good feeling sorry for that sort. He's not to be trusted." "Well, the effects of the hair lotion don't last long, any more than the superhuman strength from the real magic potion," Getafix explained. "Tomorrow their hair will have stopped growing. I must think of a way out of this." 2 legionaries with beards and hair trailing on the ground marched up to them, with difficulty, and saluted. "Reporting to escort you to the forest for ingredients," said the larger legionary. The Gauls went out to the camp ahead of them. As the legionaries followed, the larger one, whose hair flowed around him so freely that he might have been wearing a black fur cloak, turned and glared at his companion. "Stop walking on my hair!" he snapped. "Well, pick it up, then," the smaller legionary snapped back. He, too, was almost invisible inside his own ginger hair. "I have a plan," Getafix confided to Astrix as they walked along. "I knew you'd think of one," said Astrix. "That's our strong point. We Gauls are simply bursting with ideas." The legionaries stood watching as the 2 Gauls strolled about the forest at their leisure, gathering a large quantity of ingredients. "Hurry up," said the larger legionary. "Our beards are growing." Sure enough, his was snaking out on the ground in front of him. The smaller legionary had propped his ginger beard on the point of his spear to get it out of the way, but his hair still undulated away on both sides of him. "I think we've got about all we need," said Getafix, coming down from the tree where he'd been cutting mistletoe. Astrix did all the ingredients up into a bundle in a white cloth, and they went back to the camp of Compendium. Christmas Bonus had just been shaved and had a haircut when the Gauls marched in. He had made his second-in-command do the job. It had taken poor Marcus Gigantonicus 3 hours, and he was exhausted. "Here we are again," said Astrix cheerfully, marching in with the bundle slung over his shoulder. "Good, get started," said Christmas Bonus, and he rose from a sea of his own white hair clippings to go with the Gauls. "Where are you going?" asked Astrix, seeing the centurion about to follow them into their tent. "I want to watch you prepare the antidote," said Christmas Bonus. "Dear me, no, nothing doing," said Astrix firmly, going into the tent and waving Christmas Bonus away. "We need peace and quiet. You're too jumpy by half." Christmas Bonus summoned several legionaries. "Watch that tent," he said grimly, "and whatever you do, don't let them escape." The legionaries stood there on guard, spears at the ready, their hair knotted up in all sorts of ingenious ways in the hope of allowing themselves some freedom of movement. Inside the tent, the Gauls prepared to make a new brew. "Right, here goes," said Getafix. He had 2 cauldrons standing on the hearth, a big one and a little one, and he set to work while Asterix brought firewood. "Now, Asterix," the Druid explained a little later, when both cauldrons were just coming to the boil, "this little cauldron contains genuine magic potion. We'll need plenty of strength to get us out of here. The large cauldron will contain antidote, or that's what we'll call it." He tipped ingredients into the cauldron of boiling water as he spoke. "Vegetables, roots, marrowbone, salt. We might as well make it a good fortifying soup while we're about it. After all, we'll have to drink it in front of the Romans." After a while, the magic potion was ready. "Take a good swig," Getafix told his friend, and he drank some himself. Asterix raised the cauldron to his own lips and drained it. He felt the wonderful superhuman strength of the magic potion course through his veins. What a relief! He tossed the empty cauldron over his shoulder. "And the soup's ready too," said Getafix, You can call Christmas Bonus and the others now. Antidote's up, yelled Asterix, sticking his head through the tent opening. Bring the cauldron over here, ordered Christmas Bonus, pointing to a level space outside the tents. Coming, said Asterix, helpfully obeying the Roman. He and Getafix put the big cauldron down where the centurion wanted it. Christmas Bonus had learnt caution by now. He scooped out some of the liquid and handed the ladle to Asterix. You have some first. Asterix unhesitatingly took the ladle and drank its contents. What's it like? Asked Getafix, watching. Very good, said Asterix. A few croutons might improve it. Well, your turn now, he said to Christmas Bonus, who was glaring suspiciously at him. The centurion's beard was down below his waist again by now. And how can I be sure this potion will stop my hair growing? Asked Christmas Bonus, folding his arms. You think of everything, Roman, said Astrix admiringly. Look at my moustache here. It's not growing any longer, is it? Christmas Bonus peered at Asterix's yellow moustache. It certainly didn't seem to be growing any longer. He had a vague sense that there was a flaw in the reasoning somewhere here. It slipped his mind that the Gauls themselves had not drunk any of the hair lotion in the first place. But there was no doubt. Asterix's moustache was just the same as before. You're right, by Jupiter. It isn't growing, he said. Right, let's have some. And all the Romans dashed for the cauldron of vegetable soup and plunged head first into it. Greedy pigs, said Getafix. Yes, but just think of all those hairs in the soup. Yuck, said Asterix. Christmas Bonus wiped his mouth on his hand and heaved a huge sigh of relief. Ah, now then, men, seize those Gauls, he yelled. With pleasure, said Marcus Ginnantonicus, making for Asterix. He had no idea, of course, that Asterix was well dosed with magic potion. The little warrior stood his ground and grabbed Marcus Ginnantonicus by his long black beard, singing annoyingly, Curly locks, wilt thou be mine? Let go, screeched Marcus Ginnantonicus. Asterix did not let go. Instead, he swept Ginnantonicus off his feet and whirled him round and round in the air by his beard. Help! Screeched the unfortunate Roman. I said let go, will you? Right, said Asterix, whirling him even faster, and then letting go so that he flew into a crowd of legionaries, knocking them all out. Well done, Asterix, said Getafix, grabbing his friend's hand. Come on, let's go before they come round again. Just as I was beginning to enjoy myself, said Asterix, looking behind him a little regretfully. They had forgotten that there might be a sentry on duty at the camp gates. The man's beard had been cut not so very long before, so that it was only down to his waist at the moment, and not long enough to stop him pointing a spear at the two Gauls and saying nastily, Vade retro! Get back. The Gauls were having none of that, not with plenty of magic potion inside them. They tore past the sentry, leaving his spear broken, his shield crumpled, his helmet airborne, and the man himself sitting on the ground seeing stars. But at least, somehow or other, the shock had shaved his beard and removed most of his hair. Asterix and Getafix were sure they would have an easy journey back to the village now. However, just outside the camp of Compendium, an unexpected sight met their eyes. Romans, said Getafix, coming to a sudden halt. Heaps of Romans, agreed Asterix, doing likewise. There are more over there, too, said Getafix, pointing. And over there. We're surrounded, said Asterix. Sure enough, rank upon rank of marching Roman soldiers were advancing through the peaceful countryside, carrying forests of spears, and the mighty Roman standards known as eagles. They were approaching from in front of the Gauls, from their right and from their left, and turning to look behind them, Asterix and Getafix saw Christmas Bonus and his hairy garrison in the entrance to the camp behind them. Reinforcements arriving in the nick of time, said Christmas Bonus nastily. We're in a spot, gasped Asterix, and they were. Even well primed with magic potion, two Gauls could hardly deal with so many thousand men on their own. This time, I'm going to roast you alive, said Christmas Bonus with satisfaction, advancing towards them. But he was interrupted by a newcomer, a Roman legionary in a very handsome blue and gold uniform carrying a Roman standard. You could tell he was a newcomer, one of the troops who had just arrived, because he was as clean-shaven as a Roman legionary ought to be. "Oh, Christmas bonus! You're wanted urgently in your tent," he told the centurion. "Urgently?" said Christmas bonus. "Urgently," said the Roman standard-bearer. Christmas bonus marched into his tent. His nerves were all on edge already, so that he was further annoyed to see someone had draped rather a nice sky-blue cloak carelessly over his best chair. "Who's left this cloak cluttering up my tent?" he demanded, picking it up. He heard a voice behind him. "Kindly render unto Caesar the things of the Caesars," it said. Turning with a start, Christmas bonus got the surprise of his life. There stood a tall, elegant, commanding figure of a man, magnificently dressed in gold and white, with the Roman eagle in gold on his breastplate. He was losing his hair, but a laurel wreath was arranged on his head so as to hide his bald patch. "Julius Caesar!" exclaimed the centurion. "Who else?" agreed Caesar, advancing into the middle of the tent. "I came to see how you lot were getting on with those invincible Gauls, and what exactly is going on here to prevent the garrison welcoming me with the customary honours?" "Well, it so happens we are fighting the Gauls at this very moment," quavered Centurion Christmas bonus apologetically. "Are you indeed?" said Caesar. "How many Gauls?" Well, 2, Christmas bonus admitted in a very small voice. "2?" inquired Julius Caesar. "2? By Cleopatra, show me this precious pair who can upset a whole garrison of Roman legionaries," he demanded, marching majestically out of the tent with a very unmajestic centurion after him. They came to Asterix and Getafix, standing in the middle of the camp. "Aha!" said Julius Caesar, looking them up and down as they stood bravely facing the great man, arms folded. "So these are the terrible Gauls. One small, pint-sized warrior, one venerable, white-bearded Druid. Perhaps you two can tell me what all this is about." Asterix was quite ready to oblige. "Well, oh, Julius," he said in friendly tones, "it's like this. Christmas bonus was extremely eager to get hold of the recipe for a magic potion which would have made him invincible, thus removing all obstacles between himself and the imperial throne." "The imperial throne," said Caesar, turning to look down at the now pathetic figure of Christmas bonus. Well, how very interesting. "I can explain everything," said Christmas bonus desperately. "Don't bother," said Caesar loftily, dismissing the centurion with a wave of his imperial hand. "Go and shave, for Jupiter's sake. Then you and your men will set off for Outer Mongolia. I hear there's a barbarian rebellion there." The centurion trudged dejectedly away. "Gauls," said Julius Caesar, turning to Astrix and Getafix, "you have rendered me a great service. As a reward I grant you your freedom. But this is only a truce. We shall meet again." "I'm counting on that, Julius, old chap," said Astrix, looking the famous general straight in the eye. "In fact, I'm looking forward to it." A little later, Obelix was delivering menhirs around the village as usual, when he saw 2 familiar figures approaching the village gates. "By 2 tarties, here they are!" he shouted, tossing his menhir high in the air in delight, and he ran to tell the others. Chief Vital Statistics and all the villagers welcomed Asterix and Getafix home. A magnificent banquet was held in their honour, with plenty of roast boar, laughter, and singing, although fully automatic stopped the bard performing too often by threatening him with his hammer. And all night long, by the light of the moon, under a starry sky, the indomitable Gauls of the little village feasted their heroes, who had triumphed over all their enemies, thanks to a combination of magic, the protection of the gods, and low cunning.